So we're doing this session looking at employability in the social enterprise sector. So what's the role that we can play around job creation, and how can the social enterprise sector engage more with that? So I'm delighted today to welcome Jayne Chappell from the Employability Social Enterprise Network. So hi, Jayne. And then we're going to also be joined, after Jayne's spoken, by Alex Warren, who's Strategic Director at the WISE Group. So welcome, Alex. Look forward to your presentation too. And then we're also going to be joined by Beth and Moira as a bit of a double act from SCVO as our last speakers for today. So we're hopeful we could start with Alison, but I think we're a bit challenged by that at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start off today's session, if I may, and I did warn Jayne this may happen, so hopefully I'm not catching you out too much, Jayne. But if we start with you, and as usual on our webinar, we'll save the Q&A towards the end. If you've got any questions as we go through, just post them in the chat function, and hopefully we will get questions answered.
Hi there, this is Alice. I've managed to join in my mobile. Can anybody hear me?
Welcome, Alison. Yes, we can. Would you prefer to go first as per the original schedule?
Yes, if you don't mind, that would be fine.
Yeah, okay. What we'll do is we'll all turn our video off then, and we'll just have you. So welcome. Alison is joining us from DWP Scotland, so she's partnership manager, and she's going to be talking us through the Kickstart scheme. So welcome, Alison. Thank you.
Hi there. Right, so just to talk about Kickstart this morning, folks. Kickstart is a UK government initiative, so they're investing £2 billion on youngsters aged 16 to 24 to prevent them from becoming long-term unemployed. So the aim of Kickstart is eligibility from day one for that age group, specifically on universal credit at the moment. And later on in the year, they will look at bringing in other benefits and maybe extending the age range. So what we're really looking to do at the moment is get as many employers and gateway organisations involved as we can to offer placements to our young people. So what the government is funding is for a 26-week placement for a minimum of 25 hours, and that will be fully funded by the government, along with £1,500 per person, which is for any kind of bespoke training or wraparound support that they might need. So by the end of the 6 months, they'll get additional training certificates or additional qualifications to hopefully lead them into full-time permanent employment. We've been working quite a lot with local authorities, with SDSs, so they're going to link in with us at the end of the 6 months to see if they can then offer the youngster a modern apprenticeship or any kind of funding to keep them in the role for as long as possible, if not permanent. But at the moment, these schemes are just funded for 26 weeks. The gateway organisation, they will get £300 per placement, which is an admin cost, so the wages are now going to be paid monthly in arrears. So the money will go to the gateway organisation, who will then in turn pay the employer, who in turn will pay the customer. So we've got probably about 700 employers across Scotland signed up to the scheme at the moment, with 157 gateway organisations. Where we are at the moment is they're probably taking about 6 weeks for the agreement to be signed off. So any gateway organisations have put their bids in, they've had to put them in for a minimum of 30 to start with. That's taken, as I say, it was originally 4 weeks, but due to the high demand, it's taken about 6 weeks. Once that's all agreed and signed off, then it'll be a case of job descriptions all going on the Universal Credit Portal, and the work coaches matching and referring these customers to start. Originally, we were looking at start dates of the 2nd of November for the scheme, but it looks as if that's now going to be the middle of November. They're looking for about 10,000 starts for November, but again, we might have to move that on a couple of weeks. So that's where we kind of are up to date at the moment. Because I'm able to work my computer, any questions you want to ask, if you even want to just sort of note them down the side, and then I can get it at some point and update Duncan with any answers or whatever that you're looking for. If anybody got anything they want to ask me?
Thank you, Alison. If anyone's got any questions, obviously if they post them in the chat, I can put them through as well. So perhaps we usually do all of our Q&A at the end, but if we've got any questions, if that's all right, Alison?
Yeah, no problem at all. I'll answer any questions that anybody's looking to be answered. No problem.
Perfect. So we'll do the Q&A at the end, and then if in the meantime anyone wants to post any of their questions, and I know things are already starting to come through, which is great, then we can put those to you at the end. And for now, I'll just bring on Jayne from the Employability Sen. Thanks, Jayne.
Thanks, Naomi. Right, just bear with me while I share my screen. Okay, right. Hello, everyone. So I'm really happy to be speaking to you today. I had a bit of a close encounter between my face and the curb at the weekend, which resulted in stitches and emergency dental work. So my mouth's a wee bit swollen. I was having trouble speaking, so I wasn't sure if I'd be able to take part. So I'm pleased that I'm here. So I'm Jayne. I work for Social Enterprise Network Scotland. We're an intermediary organisation. We support and connect and promote social enterprises across Scotland. We've got about 1,500 members who work in a variety of industry sectors, delivering significant economic, social, environmental benefits to the country. So within SenScot, my job title is Finance and Development Manager, but as Naomi said, I co-facilitate the Employability Sen. So that's a network of social enterprises that stretch across Scotland that deliver employability outcomes, particularly for people furthest from the labour market. So the aims of the Employability Sen are around supporting and connecting social enterprises to share experience, to share knowledge and learning. We work to increase awareness and understanding of social enterprise and their contribution to Scotland's employability landscape. I guess particularly around their expertise in supporting people with significant barriers to work. We promote their role in tackling inequalities, in delivering a wellbeing economy, and we also represent members' interests to try and ensure that there's a policy environment that meets their needs. So I guess I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of social enterprises, employability and employment, and some of the issues that our members face and have faced more recently. So Employability Sen members adopt a number of different models. They deliver an incredibly wide variety of flexible, person-centered employability support to people. I should say at this point that in terms of the main beneficiary groups supported by social enterprises, we tend to focus on disability of all forms, which would include mental health and learning disabilities, people with homeless backgrounds, substance misuse, people with convictions, and young people. Okay, grand. Okay, so I just want to take you back to a land before COVID, to the last census that was carried out to capture the scale, reach and contribution of social enterprises in Scotland. So Scotland's third census in 2019 provided pretty compelling evidence of the sector's contribution to addressing social and economic exclusion. And it showed the extent to which social enterprises actively work with and create opportunities for people often considered furthest from the labour market. So this slide's really just to give you a bit of a flavour of that. In addition to the stats on the slide, 79% of social enterprises employ more than half their workforce from their own locality, and 75% pay at least the living wage, and 31% have providing training for employment as one of their main organisational goals. Okay, so I mean, you'll all know, we're lucky in Scotland. We have a government that recognises social enterprise as a vital partner in the economy and civil society and in creating a fair and more inclusive Scotland. They've been incredibly supportive of social enterprise, and we're rightly seen as one of the world leaders. And we've got a social enterprise support infrastructure that is the envy of many countries. So within the 10-year social enterprise strategy, the government's currently redrafting the second 3-year action plan that sits alongside that to take account of where we find ourselves just now. And I just wanted to share this quote from government that's in the strategy to highlight the contribution that social enterprises make to Scotland's employability and employment landscape. I guess as these next quotes show, from the strategy, there's more to be done. The the contribution of social enterprises is not always fully recognised or funded. The strategy emphasises the ability of social enterprises to unlock the full potential of people furthest from the labour market. So I just want to talk a bit about some of the barriers there are to social enterprises realising that ability to their absolute fullest. So a significant proportion of our members operate outside of or are unable to access mainstream employability funding, and those that do tend towards programmes that are smaller and more localised in approach, so like the Employability Fund. Programmes do not always fit our members' experiences of supporting people, and we perhaps need to look again at how we do provide that support to people furthest from the labour market. Large scale, high volume, traditional employability support is often not the most appropriate. Won't surprise you to hear the scale and complexity of employability contracts are inaccessible for the majority of our members. The payment model, payment by results or payment by outcomes, pushes the risk onto our members who can't sustain that risk, or they can't manage that impact on the cash flow. And many members report previous bad experience with lead or prime contractors, whether that's real or perceived. It's certainly something that we hear quite a lot. And I guess what we also hear is that social enterprises are often used to provide really valuable and important work placements for individuals, but they receive no payment for that work, and their contribution to successful outcomes often goes unrecognised and unreported. I can't talk today, obviously, without mentioning the impact of COVID. We all know COVID's hit social enterprises hard. The drawback of a sector earning such a significant proportion of its income from trade is that when social enterprises were shut down, their income streams were drastically reduced or wiped out almost overnight. And whilst funders were incredibly flexible and supportive of with their funding, the majority of social enterprises had been reducing their reliance on these funds and so have been impacted enormously. However, social enterprises amongst you will know this better than I. During lockdown, social enterprise along with a wider third sector have responded to community needs with breathtaking speed and commitment. The size, reach and speed of this response was, to use that well-known phrase these days, unprecedented. And I guess COVID has shown once again the capability and the value and the importance of the social enterprise sector. We know COVID is a health turned economic crisis. We know there is an unemployment crisis looming at a scale and at a velocity that is quite hard to kind of fully comprehend, I think. And I guess while the initial focus was on trying to keep people connected with their jobs through the furlough scheme, we are now seeing programmes like Kickstart developed that focus on finding people jobs. So going forward, as we're looking to support people, improve employability and crucially create jobs, we believe social enterprises have a key role to play, particularly as there's a real concern for us that people with barriers to employment will be pushed even further down the labour market queue, with newly unemployed people being favoured for any available jobs. So the people that our members support will be left even further behind. I just want to give you a bit of a flavour about the role social enterprises play in job creation and employability, and why we believe their role is so important, and why we need them to be more an integral part of funded employability services. So social enterprises provide a person-centred support. It's flexible enough to adapt to people's individual unique circumstances, and for people furthest from the labour market, this often means the right job at the right time with the right support tailored specifically to them. Our members can also offer longer term support and progression at a pace that individuals can sustain, I guess, rather than being dictated by a specific employability programme. And for people furthest from the labour market, this can often make a real difference. They take an asset-based approach, so they consider an individual's abilities, their aspirations, their interests and their motivations. They also work across government's employability pipeline and across all beneficiary groups. They support people who are pre-pipeline, if there is such a thing, it's significant work that's usually key to a person's confidence and progression. I think most of our members would sort of say that they recognise for some that the real issue is actually social inclusion rather than employability necessarily. And given the impact of COVID, this pre-pipeline support has never been more important as we look to support people's mental health and well-being. Work integration needs to be accompanied by social integration. Social enterprises are more likely to reach people who don't engage with mainstream provision. They work at a grassroots level. They build relationships and trust with harder to reach individuals. They also know their local landscape, so they can open up employment opportunities with employers. They have an expertise and intelligence in their own local area, which is sometimes missed or ignored in current employability programs, and could make a significant difference when we're looking to address COVID's impact. I think also social enterprises have a role to play in sharing their expertise in working with people with significant barriers to work, sharing that expertise with mainstream employers, so helping to increase their understanding and knowledge and confidence in employing people who may require that little bit of extra support. They can also provide wraparound support. So for instance, whilst also working with someone's, to improve someone's employability, they can help them with their financial management, or maybe, you know, something around healthy eating. So they're supporting a person and their mental health and well-being alongside their employability. They go the extra mile or two for people. They focus on enabling people to lead meaningful and fulfilling lives and contributing to society and being valued for their work. To people who feel that they've been forgotten about or written off, I can't really overstate the difference it makes and how people feel about themselves to engage in something meaningful to contribute to the success of a business and to society. I've just included this slide to give you a few quotes from people who've been supported and employed by social enterprises. And before I finish, I just wanted to touch on a wider point, although it's inherently linked to jobs and work. Because of COVID, the ever-changing and so uncertain situation that we're facing, we are looking at potentially a huge, and here's that word again, unprecedented increase in people with poor mental health. And whilst we all have our bad days at work, we know that being in a job is good for our well-being, and being in a high quality job is even better. And I just wanted to distinguish between high value jobs that we are hearing so much about and high quality jobs. So a high quality job is not about a certain skills level or a certain industry sector or a certain income band. It's about what makes a job worthwhile to an individual. It's about security. It's about feeling valued, having a sense of purpose, an opportunity to develop. So basically a supportive work environment with strong social connections. And social enterprises offer this to their staff, to their volunteers, to their beneficiaries. And as we look for ways to tackle the mental health tsunami that's heading our way going forward, I think social enterprises have an important role to play here also. We can pour huge amounts of time, energy, resource into employability, but to secure the biggest benefit for this, for individuals and the country, we're going to need jobs. And I think social enterprises can play a leading role in tackling this coming surge in unemployment, supporting people into work, helping people sustain work, and creating jobs within a supportive environment. So that's the end from me. Again, thank you for allowing me to speak and fly the flag for social enterprises and how they can help us in the current situation.
Thank you very much, Jayne. I'm conscious, I have to say, I'm looking out my window and I was expecting a new sofa to be delivered this afternoon, and they've literally just arrived halfway through the webinar. So what I'm going to do is we're obviously still going through our speakers, so I'm going to be delighted to welcome Alex to our webinar next, but I have just briefed Duncan who's also from Social Enterprise Scotland, that he may just need to nip in. So hopefully Duncan's seen that too. But I've just got to go and answer the door while I hand over to Alex. So I'm sorry I'm missing your presentation briefly, Alex, but I will be back.
No problem. Well, thanks very much. Is that sharing going all right? Just want to double check. Looks good here. And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to join the session today. It's been really insightful to hear from Alison and particularly from Jayne as well. I mean, to say there's a lot of similarities to some of the things that I'll actually be repeating, and I kind of wholeheartedly agree with everything that Jayne's just been through from a social enterprise point of view, but also from a customer point of view, and you'll probably pick that up through my ramblings over the next 10 minutes or so. So delighted to be here to talk about the WISE Group and our focus on, I suppose, our experience around employability. Duncan, Naomi and the team have asked me to talk about these, but I also wanted to use the opportunity to highlight, I suppose, the impact of COVID on our customers, as Jayne's so eloquently covered, and the impact that it's had, and also the impact we think it's likely to have. So those that know us will know we deliver a wide range of support to vulnerable customers to lift them out of poverty. Within a normal year, we'll engage with upwards of 30,000 people across all of the programs which we deliver. And these range from supporting people with employability, which I'll be talking a bit more about today, our mentoring services to reduce reoffending across the justice system, our skills and training delivery to build people's skills and confidence, and also our large-scale work to eradicate fuel poverty. So we have specific experience on supporting people with employability, and this has been focused on helping people to break down barriers, build up confidence and skills to move into the world of work. We've been doing this since the WISE Group began in 1983. So it's kind of safe to say that we've got wide-ranging experience of delivering employability support, as well as devising and delivering programs to tackle unemployment and support people back towards sustainable futures. We have, and we currently do, deliver large-scale programs for the likes of government, such as Fair Start Scotland, but we also deliver our own programs with partners and at various scales to support people back towards work. And as an organisation, we've seen and even been involved in shaping the world of employment support over the past few decades. We've seen massive large-scale programs being devised, and more recently, sort of pre-COVID, or the land before COVID, as Jayne called it, we saw the slowing of support across Scotland and the rest of the UK as employment levels reached record highs. So pre-COVID, we were seeing the types of programs that we deliver and the specific policy investment and focus that goes with it shift a little and kind of slow down. There was a much larger focus on things like in-work support, in-work poverty, and underemployment, as these were the growing issues. And they still are, and they will remain to be. But now the picture's changed. So putting all this into the context of the current pandemic and the crisis around employment, everyone on this session know that it's a pretty scary picture. So who does COVID affect the most? We know that the virus hits certain groups the hardest: the elderly, those with underlying health conditions. It's hard to escape all of these facts in the everyday news and how they've impacted our lives. But from an economic point of view, it's a slightly different picture. Proportionately, it's young people that are the most affected in terms of employment prospects. Those in the lowest paid jobs that have been the hardest hit. COVID has shone a bright light on a spotlight even on inequality. For example, the lowest paid workers, but sometimes those delivering some of the most critical roles across our society, and roles which can't be done remotely from working from home. These people have been hit the hardest, have been exposed to the most risk. There's been fewer hours worked across many sectors. Household incomes are being squeezed heavily like never before. And poverty in itself has a multiplier effect on COVID. But to be fair, I expect this is not news to most people who are dialing into this session. So unemployment is expected to hit record high levels, and we'll see huge spikes in numbers to those who need help. And I was going to use the term tsunami. Jayne's already used it. We hear it a lot. We hear about a tsunami of job seekers, people who will be unemployed, who will be in need of support. And this is likely to be true, and we will see people who never thought they would lose their job, or have never had any real interaction with things like the welfare system, suddenly arriving at job centres or our organisations needing help. So the profile change of our customers and the landscape of people needing support is a real watch out for all of us in terms of employability. And there's a myriad of employability support programs operating across the UK at the moment, which will be able to help some of these people. And there's many more new programs to come, but I'll touch on that more in a moment. But how do we do this without it being at a cost? And the cost being the further marginalisation of those people who are furthest from the labour market. These are the groups that are at risk of being squeezed out even further by the sheer number of people who will access support, who will gain re-employment, who will access reskilling and retraining opportunities. And our big question, and the question that we must continually pose to policymakers, is how do we ensure that those who were left behind before, in that phrase, don't end up being further left behind? The imperative has got to be on a twin track, economic and social recovery. More broadly, as civic challenges heighten, displacement must be our key watch out. We mustn't forget that those people who were already struggling before the pandemic, and I've got to say that some of the things that we've seen really, so far have been really encouraging. And we've hugely welcomed the focus on the people and place principles in Scotland, particularly the community wealth building approach that's been adopted is now being talked about more and more. And it's great to see leaders in this, such as North Ayrshire Council and their statement of intent on things like community wealth building. So back to the programmes, in terms of employability, we currently deliver Fair Start Scotland on behalf of the Scottish Government in the West region. And this was already a programme that supported a large number of people back into work. And we've been seeing the service get busier. Many have seen that the Scottish Government extended the programme for a further 2 years. And we can expect to see the volumes on Fair Start Scotland and other equivalent programmes across the UK continue to rise. And we're likely to see the profile of the customers change too. So we know that unemployment levels will rise to record highs and the number of people needing support will be challenging. So what's the policy and the government reaction been to this so far? What's coming over the hill in terms of employment support? And as you can see from the slide, or you might not be able to see from the slide, but hopefully we can disseminate these later. It's a pretty busy picture. This slide simply shows the sort of new initiatives that are coming or have arrived that are a direct response. So obviously the Kickstart programme, £2 billion of support that Alison talked about earlier, 16 to 24-year-olds on universal credit, a massive push from the government to focus on employment and focused on young people. On that same vein, the Scottish Youth Guarantee that the Scottish Government are currently working through and will soon be releasing full details on, again, focused on young people and how they can ensure that they're not left behind by the impacts of COVID. The Job Finding Support Programme, a programme that was recently out for tender across the UK, looking at, procured by the DWP, looking at support for people who have been unemployed for 13 weeks or less. So more light touch, remote support to help people move quickly back into work. The CARES framework, so forgive all the acronyms. CARES stands for Commercial Agreement for Employment and Health Related Support. So this is a large scale framework that's been developed, and some may have seen the announcements of the results of that framework over the past few weeks. This is a large framework that will be the sort of default method for procurement and commissioning and award of larger scale programs in terms of employability and health related support across the UK. So a significant framework that will see a lot of activity over the coming months and years. JET Scotland, which is Job Entry Targeted Support. The Job Entry Targeted Support is a programme already live in other parts of the UK as an extension of the Work and Health programme in England. Currently, there's a live procurement process as we speak for JETs in Scotland, supporting people who have been unemployed for more than 13 weeks, and a support package that aligns with all of the other programs that are in existence. And that will be running, that will be live as of the very early next calendar year, as will the Jobs Finding Support Programme. We know that there's support across England coming for long-term unemployed, so those who have been unemployed for 12 months or more intensive support to break down barriers and help people back into work. Along with all of this, we know that there's regional support packages being pulled together by things like clusters of job centres, often with social enterprises and third sector organisations bidding in to deliver meaningful local grassroots programmes to support people back into work. And this slide just shows some of the new programmes. We've got to think how all of these align and perhaps even compete with current provision, stuff that's not included in this graphic here. Things like Fair Start Scotland, the Employability Fund, Employability Pipeline provision, these regional employability programmes, and local grassroots programmes, which there's many of, and are hugely impactful in their work and the outcomes they have for people, very much like Jayne described in her presentation before mine. And for us, and probably many others on this session, we're supposed experts in this arena, so we should clearly understand what's going on, how best support people through it to gain positive outcomes. But right now everything's moving very, very quickly, and it can be quite confusing as things evolve at this pace, and all of these new elements are being talked about and will come in. So if we don't grasp yet the best way to navigate through all of this new and existing support, we've got to ask ourselves how we can expect people who need the help to navigate their way through it and understand it. But I don't want to be negative. We've got to focus on the advantages of this wide-ranging package of support being implemented. And all of the work, whatever our, we've got to all work out what our role is in supporting this, even if it's not involved directly with the programs in terms of delivery. And based on the scale of a lot of these things, it'll be some larger scale and providers who deliver a lot of this. But we've got to work out what our role is, how we can build this into our planning and development to fit around this to support the people who need our help. So for the last couple of minutes, Duncan and the team had asked us to talk about the specific programs, and I know obviously Alison introduced Kickstart at the start of this session, so I won't focus too much on it. This slide obviously gives a high-level overview of the programme, £2 billion of support, part of the government's plan for jobs, and the sort of high-level ambition behind Kickstart is to ensure that youth unemployment is not a legacy of COVID. And it's a large-scale investment, as part of the economic recovery of the country. Programmes like Kickstart will have a real impact. And we really welcome the Kickstart programme and see it as a great opportunity. We see there being a real chance to add value to Kickstart as a gateway to the Kickstart programme. And by working with the right kind of employers, we can support the creation of good quality Kickstart roles, which ensure young people get a really positive and helpful experience over their 6 months. And we want Kickstart to be a success and a positive programme that gives as many young people as possible a great opportunity. And that's our key driver for being involved. We're now registered as a Kickstart gateway, and we're playing a role to support employers across to access the scheme and to add value. We know that we can bring expertise to this programme, and particularly in terms of the employability and the wraparound support that each person must get as part of it. Many will know this already, and I'm sure this will be picked up in the Q&A at the end of the sessions. Employers can apply directly to be involved if they're creating 30 or more roles. However, we know that most employers, a lot of employers, lots of social enterprises that might want to get involved with this, won't create 30 or more. So there's a process whereby the utilisation of intermediaries or gateways, will support groups of employers to engage on the scheme. So from an employer perspective, there's lots of questions that I know have been posed to the likes of Alison and others at the DWP about what it means to get involved. Is it a lot of work? Is this going to be hard work for me and my organisation? Simply put, no. It's about creating a role that fits the criteria and supports your organisation. Working with a gateway to pass on the information and to help, and who will then build and submit an application on your behalf. And then it's about screening the people that are put forward by the work coaches in whatever way suits your organisation. And then once someone is successful in taking up a role, that training and induction programme, supporting them like you would any other employee. But bearing in mind that the wages up within the criteria are met by the DWP and all of the on costs that go with that. Whoops, sorry, I have skipped through that too quickly. Have we lost the presentation? Sorry, I think we're back. And the wraparound support, something that some organisations that we've spoken to already say, is that something I've got to deliver? I'm not sure I'll be able to do that. Obviously it's a critical part of the Kickstart scheme. We know that Gateways, people like us, our organisation and many others, will be able to support with that, with the provision of some of the wraparound support that's required for the young people, ensuring that the young people get the help that they need, but not at the same time not causing any hassle to the employer, any barriers for them to getting involved or cause any disruption. There's been lots of questions around, can I pay people more? Can I give them more than 25 hours? Can I keep people on after 6 months? What if the person doesn't work out? All straightforward, and useful questions from an employer perspective. Yes, you can pay them more. If you deal with the additional requirements of that, of any money that's paid above the national minimum wage for that person. Can I give them more hours? Yes, brilliant. That's exactly, that's a great outcome. Again, down to the employer to take on that responsibility at that point. Can you keep them for more than 6 months after the Kickstart placements end? Yes, even better. Just another chance to create an even more meaningful experience for that young person and give them access to good, meaningful work. So we're specifically interested in being able to utilise our experience in the provision of employability support to help young people improve their prospects whilst on the Kickstart scheme. And as part of our offer to employers on Kickstart, we'll provide a full range of employability support to young people. And we think that this, alongside quality 6-month Kickstart roles with like-minded employers, can create a real chance for many young people to come out of this situation stronger and be ready to move on into employment. And just very quickly at the end, as well as Kickstart, we've got a range of other programmes that we currently deliver which specifically support people back towards employment, breaking down barriers and improving skills and confidence. There's a handful of examples on this slide, specifically from an employability and skills perspective. And as you can see, I've highlighted a few which specifically focus on digital skills, which is an essential part of life now as we know it. And I know there was a question that came in on the chat just before I started about working from home, what impact that's going to have. We know digital exclusion is a challenge faced by many, and many of our customers in particular. And this has been amplified in a huge way by COVID. Because if you can't get online, if you've not got the capability or the hardware or the confidence or any combination of those things, then, and with the migration of many services, essential services, to remote delivery and online access, if you can't get online, if you are digitally excluded, to use that term, you're paralyzed, you're cut out of accessing certain things. So digital exclusion is a huge watch out for us at the moment. And I know there's many things going on to focus on that, to support it from a government level, but also on a local level. But just to quickly counter through these, Fair Start Scotland I've already talked about before. We are currently delivering life skills programme, adult life skills, in partnership with Barclays in Kilmarnock as part of a wider community programme that Barclays are working on. Really great content from a sort of in-work perspective, employability perspective, and a financial inclusion perspective. So really great programme for people to get involved with, and we would urge people in that area, in the Kilmarnock, East Ayrshire region, to engage with that programme and get involved. We've recently taken on a programme, we've partnered with the Good Things Foundation for a programme called Make It Click, focusing on supporting people with improving digital skills, overcoming some of the hurdles, getting more confident online, and going through simple, structured sort of training and support around digital skills to support normal everyday life, which is really great. ITA, individual training accounts, we've been focused on that again since the programme started, with quite a specific focus on construction and the CSCS card delivery because of the unprecedented demand we had on us for that. There's been huge uptake in the past couple of months. And then the last one I'll talk about is an introduction to digital skills, a course that we've been running within Glasgow in partnership with CGI, a global IT firm, and Glasgow City Council. And we've been running an intensive course, 3 weeks, of 3 consecutive weeks of training focused on introductions to digital skills for people who are unemployed within the city. And it's been hugely successful and impactful programme. It's exceeded our expectations even. It's a mix of soft skills and accredited training, working through to digital skills and confidence. And we've supported nearly 100 people on this so far already. And 96% of them have sustained that. They've stayed the full 3 weeks, which is incredible considering what the ask is. and it's just showed the impact and the positive impact it's had on the people we've worked with. So I'm conscious of time, but this is just a quick canter through some of our programs. We'd love to talk more about these and how people can get involved. And if you do want to get involved with us through any of them, Kickstart, anything like that, or if you simply want to chat more about employability and the wider picture at the moment in Scotland or the UK, we would love that. So thank you, thanks for the time, thanks to the team for inviting me along to talk today, and looking forward to hearing everybody else. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Alex. I know there's lots of questions and I can see people already starting to post answers in the chat, so that's great, particularly given I know I've got people putting together a new sofa for me upstairs and I need to go and chat to them. So the more our panellists can engage with participants and I don't need to be an intermediary, all the better. So thank you very much, Alex, for that. I'm just going to hand over now to Beth and Moira, who are going to be our last presenters for today's session. You may find it's Duncan who's back with you chairing some of the questions at the end, so I can only apologise. This is the first time the webinar's been gate crashed quite so dramatically by home working in my case. So without further ado, I'll just hand you over to Beth and Moira, and hopefully I'll be back with you as well soon. But Duncan is ready to step in if needs be as well. So thank you very much, everyone.
Great, thanks very much, Naomi. Moira, we haven't actually talked about who's going to go first. Do you want me to kick off?
Yes, on you go.
So hi everyone, delighted to be here. My name's Beth Mukushi, I work for SCVO. I'm actually not an employability person, so it's been totally fascinating for me to hear some of the conversation this morning, but my background was digital skills, digital inclusion, so it was really nice to hear Alex mention that. I'm not going to talk for very long, I don't have any slides, but I just wanted to give you a quick overview of a new support service that SCVO is hoping to launch towards the end of this month, which will be available and open to social enterprises and may be of value to your own organisations, but may also be of use to some of the people that you're working with and supporting. So just to set the scene a little bit, I'm sure most of you know who we are, but just to make sure that you do, we're SCVO, we're the Scottish Council for Voluntary Organisations, so we're one of the national membership bodies for the voluntary sector in Scotland, and that includes social enterprises as well as charities and sort of smaller community organisations. We do a huge range of different types of work with the overall ambition of supporting, promoting and developing the voluntary sector in Scotland, and we've got services like a payroll service, we provide information and training support, we've got a big employability area which Moira will talk more about, but we sort of identified as part of a new strategic development a year or so ago a need in the sector for HR support and employment support for organisations themselves, and we were thinking about how we might begin to sort of fill some of that gap. And then of course COVID struck, and like everybody else we've been kind of scrambling to try and keep up with the support needs of the sector and how we can sort of change the way that we work to best meet those needs. We have produced a kind of a coronavirus information hub, and we're receiving a high number of queries from organisations that are struggling because of COVID, and the biggest demand has been organisations looking for funding, and SCVO has kind of been the portal for a lot of the emergency funding that government's put out, but the second biggest demand has been people thinking about their own HR practice and their own employment and support for their staff. Some of that positive, so some of it about how can we best support people's well-being when we're working remotely and we're working from home, but some of it, and increasingly so, as ties into what the other speakers have said, is more about we're having to think about redundancy, we're having to think about restructuring, we've had to change the types of service that we offer, and we need to change the terms and conditions of our staff because actually we're asking them to do a slightly different job, we're redeploying them, all of those types of queries and concerns that are coming through. So SCVO have been fortunate to receive some funding from the National Lottery Community Fund, and we're using that to set up an HR and employment support service which will be available to the sector. It will hopefully do a sort of soft launch towards the end of this month, and then will become sort of fully operational probably towards the end of November. But the ambition with it is there will be a few different tiers of types of support, so that we'll enhance the kind of self-serve digital content that's already available on our website, and some of that will include slightly more bespoke kind of model policies, template letters, the types of things that organisations might need as they're supporting their staff through these difficult times. We'll also have a sort of a training and webinar programme. Again, we do some of this already, but we'll be able to enhance that and add capacity to it, and work in partnership with other organisations, maybe sort of professional lawyers, a range of different types of organisations to bring expertise to the sector as it's needed. And then the final thing is we will have a one-to-one query service, which again will be available to all voluntary organisations in Scotland that are struggling just now. Very much a focus on sort of employment and HR issues to do with coronavirus and the pandemic. That'll be the real focus. So we expect it to be quite heavily in demand around, as I said, things like restructuring, redeploying, changing terms and conditions, and hopefully some of the more positive stuff around, you know, possibly new job creation if there's people who've received funding for alternative or new types of activity. That service, hopefully, as I said, should go live towards the end of this month. There will be more information on our website about the exact remit, the types of support available. What we won't be able to do is to actually take people through a process, so we won't be able to do the work of, you know, sending out letters if you've got to send people sort of consultation letters. But what we will be able to do is provide the, you know, the factual information, make sure that people are making the best choices, giving people a bit of reassurance, particularly in maybe smaller social enterprises or smaller voluntary organisations that don't have their own HR, or maybe only have one member of staff who's wearing many different hats, as many of us do, and is trying to struggle with all of the pressures that we're under just now. So that was all that I had to say. It was just to make people aware that this service is coming, if they hadn't been aware already, and to give you a sense of what the type of remit is going to be. And I'll hand over to Moira now to talk a bit more about our wider employability work, and more than happy to take questions at the end if there's any questions.
Okay, right. I am just going to share my screen now. Okay, and hopefully everyone will be able to see the screen that I've got up here just now. Now, I had actually just, I was going to talk just purely about Kickstart, but then listening to some of what was being said, it kind of made me think, oh, there actually is a couple of other things I should actually touch on. So a couple of things I kind of wanted to mention, and I'm wary of time, so I'm going to try and dart through this very, very quickly. But a couple of things I wanted to mention. Again, this is all post-COVID, so there's been a lot mentioned there already, but just to make you aware that some of you may already know that there have been some very lengthy reports published by the UK and Scottish Government, and probably most notably for us, there's been the Advisory Group on Economic Recovery and also the Economic and Skills Strategic Board's reports. Now, this is triggering a lot of programmes and schemes, as have been mentioned, that are going to try and mitigate the impact of COVID on employment over the next coming months. But until those are operational, it's very fair to say that there are still a lot of questions that remain regarding the implementation over these months, and again, obviously, how they're going to align with existing initiatives that are already out there. Many people are probably aware or have heard of No One Left Behind, which is a policy that started well before COVID, which promised a more flexible and person-centred approach to the employability field within Scotland. So I suppose what I'm trying to get to is the SCVO, we, along with the Third Sector Employability Forum, is representing the sector on a number of the No One Left Behind work streams. So one of the things that I would definitely say is I would like to encourage more people to get involved in that. You know, if you've got an interest in employability, you don't actually have to be an employability provider, but if you've got an interest in employability, we would certainly encourage you to join the TSEF forum if you're not already on it. So if you're interested in that, I know this is obviously what I'm showing is all a Kickstart, but at the very least what I would say is drop me an email at the Kickstart email, and we'll get you sorted out and joined up with the TSEF programme as well. There had been mention as well around the Youth Guarantee report, which obviously again states that they want the public, the private, the colleges, university and the third sector all that all play a role in helping to create the opportunities. And their ambition is that every young person between the age of 16 and 24 in Scotland will be guaranteed the opportunity, based obviously on their circumstances, to either go to university or to college, or to go on to an apprenticeship, or attend training, or go on to fair employment. And that includes work experience, or participating in a more formalised volunteering programme as well. They don't want to put an end date on the Scottish Youth Guarantee as well, so this is something that they want to see carrying on over the lifespan of the government. So that, I kind of just wanted to throw that in there. So that's a slight aside to what I was actually going to talk about. But certainly what I want to obviously talk about as well is Kickstart. So SCVO, like a lot of organisations out there, we're going to act as a gateway organisation for Kickstart. Our gateway is going to look specifically at third sector employers. So I wanted to just give a wee bit of information on how we are going to work with those employers as well. It is worth noting, and again, I think Alex had already said that there are still a number of unknowns with regards to DWP's requirements for the scheme, particularly in terms of processes and procedures for the gateway organisations. So we have questions that are going into DWP and with DWP at the moment on those. But at this stage, what we have actually done is we have already submitted a pilot Kickstart application to DWP with 10 employer organisations, and they're looking to create 84 jobs over the lifetime of the Kickstart scheme. And we're going to use this pilot to help us to inform us a bit more on, hopefully, on the level of detail that's required on submissions, and also on any further process development that we need to do. But as it stands, this is the journey that we would envisage. I'm just trying to get it working right, that we would envisage any employers going through with ourselves as the gateway organisations. What we're looking to do is we're looking to use our Salesforce CMR portal to complete this whole end-to-end process, so that everything is contained in that one place. So just very, very speedily taking you through this, we will go through from an initial registration process with an organisation, and what we're looking to do there is to ensure that the organisations that we are working with are legitimate third sector organisations, are compliant employers, and are capable of employing and supporting a young person through the period of the Kickstart contract. One of the things that we do is we obviously assess that, but all of our assessors will always go back to an organisation for further information if there's any doubt or issues there as well. We then process onto the job and the job descriptions. Now, I think Alex had already mentioned that as well, that you don't need to offer the basics, but you can actually offer more than the 25 hours of work and pay above the national minimum wage rate. And we know that is something that many organisations within the sector want to do. Also, one of the very important parts as well is that each of the jobs must be evidenced as being new and not replacing any existing or redundant or planned vacancies that an organisation has. So this is something that we need to gather in from each of the employers as well. Now, we're looking at a wide range of jobs, so that will go from everything from your administration to your youth work roles, and then anything and everything in between. We know the sector can pretty much create any job type just about out there as well. Again, kind of just reiterating a wee bit, jobs can be created and filled. I think Alison had mentioned that they're expecting the first ones around about mid-November, but then they can be created and filled right up to December of 2021. So basically, there could be a young person starting in December 21 whose contract would run through to the summer, probably around about the end of June in 2022. We're looking at making applications on an ongoing basis throughout that period as and when we are required to do. So for our employers, they can think about the immediate. So if they're just thinking within the next first 6 months, they might want to submit the jobs that they're looking to create in that period. Although we do have some employers that are thinking of the lifespan of the scheme and are submitting jobs over that period, telling us which months they're looking for those jobs to start as well. Okay, recruitment. Basically, once the application is approved by DWP, we'll be notified and we will then be issued with a grant agreement, and at that point we'll also issue a memorandum with our employers as well, and at that point then the jobs are forwarded on to Job Centre Plus, and I think there's been mention about that, so I won't take you through that as well. On the programme, what we're looking to do, and certainly as a gateway organisation, we have a responsibility to notify DWP of all starts and leavers. A young person is not a start until they are on the employer's payroll and have a PAYE number, because that's how obviously the wage payments and funding will be forwarded based on that. So we, at that point, once we have notified DWP of that, then the initial wraparound support and admin fee will be released. We have a wraparound service, and I'll come on to that just in a minute. In terms of the wage payments, again, through our Salesforce system, that's where we're intending to use and to ensure that there is a smooth and a quick transfer of that funding onto the employers when it comes through. Again, notifying of leavers, so we have to make that notification to DWP. So as a basic, what we would be looking to receive in terms of information from the employer is looking at the date that a young person left and then their destination and reason for leaving as well. I've got tracking there because it's a question that we're not quite sure about yet as to whether or not that's something that's required. Okay, last slide, very, very quickly. The wraparound support. We want all organisations within the sector to be able to access and to have the potential to offer a Kickstart job. So these are organisations from very small organisations right through to your large, from your new organisations to your more established organisations. And we know this can be done by filling in the gaps and enhancing on existing support. So, as has been said, there's going to be a £1,500 wraparound support per job for the employer and the employee, and this is to help with setup costs, equipment, materials, training, and employability support costs. So there's a number, I can't remember the number that was actually that Alison stated, but there's a huge number of obviously gateway organisations registered, and they're all going to offer different support packages. Some are going to choose just to provide a purely transactional, whereby they'll submit the applications and then the employer will do everything for themselves. Others will maybe go down the line whereby they'll submit the applications, but what they'll do is they'll provide all the wraparound support as well. So what we're intending to do, and this is based on feedback and our experience from our Community Jobs Scotland programme. So from feedback from the employers that we've had so far, they've indicated that they're looking for a bit more of a hybrid model. And that's basically where we're looking to enter into a more meaningful partnership with the organisation. So what we're proposing is that the employer will receive £1,000 of the £1,500 for their setup costs, etc. And the other £500, what we're going to do is we can, I suppose, using our economies of scale and tapping into the networks that we have, we will be able to provide this wraparound on a larger scale and provide all of that opportunity for the young people and also for the employers. So the type of support that we're looking to offer, it will include things like the creating a forum, a Kickstart forum for employees and employers, separate forums. It might be that we bring those forums together from time to time, but certainly in the initial stages, they will obviously be separate. And that's really just to give people the opportunity, employees and employees, the opportunity to meet each other, to chat, exchange ideas, air concerns that they have. And also we're looking to pass on details with regards to job opportunities that are available across the country, that we get sent and forwarded and get advance notification of as well. Another one that we're looking to do is we're looking and already have a package there that we've developed, is looking at webinar sessions or in-person sessions, depending when we can do that properly, for the employees as well. We're looking at 5 at this point in time, so that can cover everything and anything. Again, going from things like mental health, maintaining their well-being, through obviously very much the employability skills development, but it can also cover more of the core, so things like communication skills, customer service skills, managing difficult situations as well. So it will be quite a wide range of package of training and events that are set up. What we're doing is that we're also working with our employer organisations, because a number of them are training organisations themselves, so they're building in training to that as well, of which we would obviously pay them for doing. Then another one is a progression certificate that we're going to offer for the young person as well. So basically at the end of their journey, at the end of their contract, they will be provided with this progression certificate, which is completed by their employer, and it's looking at 6 different areas, and that includes things like their team working, their communication skills and their problem solving. So the employer will be able to reflect on how they have developed through the period of their contract, and that will be reflected within their certificate. So as you can see, there's also a number of other certificates, other elements there that support the employer and the employee, and that includes things like obviously the employers having access to a dedicated account manager. So as I said, this package will continue to develop through the feedback from organisations as well. So I'm going to stop there because I can witter on forever, but I will stop there just now. But if you want to talk to us further, then please don't hesitate to get back in touch with us, and that just gives you an idea there. You can find more information on our website, and there's our email address there as well. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Moira. I have managed to make it back, which is good. It does mean I've missed a couple of the bits for today. So I know that I can see there's quite a few questions that have been answered in the Q&A. So I don't know if all of our presenters want to come back in now in case there's any other questions that come up. I'm also conscious we're already at our gone 12:30 mark. So I'm looking through in terms of any questions, and I'm just going to ask my colleague Duncan if he might come back in. Just in case, obviously he'll have a sense, given I unfortunately missed a few sections of today's webinar, which I've never had to do before. Apologies to everyone, just in terms of whether there's any key questions. So if anyone's got any last questions, and we'll just do 10 minutes worth of questions in case anyone has got any, in addition to ones that have been answered through the chat. So I can see the stuff in about reassurance that the youth government scheme and the Kickstart scheme will work together. I can see someone posting in new questions now. So yeah, there's lots of organisations out there, I guess, taking a register of people that are interested in the programme. So I think, like I said in the chat, I know we're trying to collect a list of names, but I know obviously SCVO are as well. And I think, you know, like I say to people when I've run sessions on different things, it's worth just seeing what the different schemes are that are out there and thinking which are the most suitable ones for your organisation in terms of what's the wraparound support that's on offer, what are the relationships, how might it work, and just looking at the different schemes that are there. So there's a few different ones out there. I perhaps just got a question. I don't know whether anyone's able to answer this, but in terms of maybe some of the demographics, because obviously the Kickstart programme is quite geared towards it's got the link with universal credit. Are there any gaps, or do we think there's gaps? I'm thinking of things like maybe in the next Scotland Youth Guarantee Programme, are there kind of gaps where there might be graduates that might be coming out that aren't going to fall under the universal credit scheme but might still want to go in a job retention scheme? Do we think any of these programmes will suit them, or are there other options? Alex, I can see you've unmuted yourself, so I'm hopeful that's because you've got an answer.
Well, I think, I don't have the answer, but in terms of thinking about Kickstart, because obviously there's been a lot of talk about that today, there's an obvious gap in that at the moment, in its first phase, it only focuses on recipients of universal credit. So we don't necessarily have all of the figures, but we know that there's a massive market there that isn't included in that in terms of young people. So some of them who are sort of 16, 17, not eligible for universal credit for various reasons. And then people who are, recent graduates or finished school, or just those that don't have a relationship with the welfare system. So I know that, that is a gap, but obviously through the conversations, through what I hear, and I know Alison made a reference to this in her talk this morning, was that, that's an evolution of the programme. That'll be something that's looked at in the next few phases of it, which is good to hear. Obviously, it's about how that translates to delivery as well, because those young people won't have a relationship with a work coach. So what's their route into the programme, and how, and then what does that mean for employers? What does that mean for the SCVOs and the WISE groups and everybody else that wants to be an intermediary or a gateway, and how does that work in a slick way that doesn't create any hurdles and doesn't disadvantage young people getting access, or employers being motivated to take part?
Thank you, Alex. It's interesting to think that might be the next iteration. I think, Duncan, you said you might come in with the next question.
Yeah, it's really a question about integration. Obviously, we can see, we've heard from a number of speakers about the support which is out there. There's a lot of support out there. There's a lot of great programs out there in terms of employment and employability. But I guess learning from what's happened in the past, I was just wondering what your comments were on integration of different schemes. Obviously, we have had reassurances from the Youth Guarantee Scheme team in the Scottish Government and the Kickstart team that those two programs will integrate really well. But it's just kind of get your thoughts from all the panelists about that kind of issue of integration.
I was just going to say that's a really interesting one, because as you said, for the Youth Guarantee and Kickstart, they're saying that's going to align, and I know that there's conversations going on as to how. That's going to be an interesting one. So yeah, it's a really, really difficult one, because there's a lot of talk going on just now in terms of alignment, but there's nothing really happening. So I suppose that's not really giving you an answer. It's a kind of part wait and see, but I think that's also, and it's kind of going back, and I'm kind of doing my sales pitch here a wee bit, but I do honestly feel that's a bit where the likes of TCEF comes in, along with other representational bodies, because I think where they are taking the voice of the sector and organisations to feed into how these things should align, because I can't remember, I did say it now, but I know that TCEF and ourselves are involved in quite a few of those work streams, so I would definitely say, for anyone that's interested, get involved with these organisations and representational organisations, and get your voice heard as well.
Sorry, Alex, go on you go.
Oh no, carry on, Jane.
Yeah, well, I was just going to, I guess, echo what Moira was saying in terms of getting in touch with organisations like ourselves, like SCVO, like TCEF, and ensuring that third sector and social enterprises' voices is loud and clear in these conversations, because there is the potential sometimes that we are drowned out, I think, being realistic. In terms of integration and alignment, I know that there's great ambition there, and I know in the past, I mean, as Alex pointed out in his wonderful slide around Britain of all the employability programs, or at least some of them, it's a complicated landscape. And more alignment, more integration is necessary, and it's never been more necessary. I mean, these are, you know, phrases that we're hearing more and more, but they're true, you know. And previously there were programs that did not align, so you couldn't work on one program, support a person through one program and then transition them onto another program. But I think the ambition, as Moira says, from government is to make sure that there is much more alignment in the future, so that employers can support more people and more people can be supported.
Yeah, and that's
it's a moving picture, I think.
Very, very much. I think that's one of the things that has come out in terms of no one left behind, and that's the whole theme behind that, is that there is alignment right across, and not just in terms of employability, but also again around the I suppose the surrounding support that individual requires. So it might be housing, it might be the justice system, whatever, but that's all, and that's the whole aim behind no one left behind. As Jayne, you said, great ambitions. How it works, that's the big struggle.
Yeah, I think the only other thing to add to that is speed, because what we're seeing at the moment is things being developed at breakneck speed.
Yeah.
Kickstart's a great example. You know, Moira pointed out, you know, we don't have all of the answers yet as to how to properly align the process and things like that.
Yeah.
I know through conversations I've had in the last 4 weeks, and you know, working until all hours because of the speed at which some of the procurement is happening from some of these bigger programs at the moment. So you're talking UK-wide programs, tens of millions, 40, 50 million pound programs being procured. A kind of a 3-week turnaround on the procurement process, award, and then implementation in just over a month for a UK-wide, you know, massive, you know, gargantuan scale programs. Which, you know, and all with the best intention, all which will make a tangible difference to the people that they support. The challenge is always going to be that is the voices of some of, you know, of the third sector, of social enterprises, TCF, and others that need to be built into those conversations. And doing all of that at speed is, you know, that's tough. You know, that's the reality. And then the competing approaches that have come from, you know, Scotland's got different approaches and more approaches in terms of employability. And how do those align with the UK-wide programs that are being procured at the moment that will also be available in Scotland, and in some senses will compete with some of the delivery? So, and we always, you know, you've got to put yourself in the perspective of the person who needs help. So where do they go? You know, there's going to be a myriad of things that can help them. But it's understanding where the best place is. And then from, you know, the likes of our organisations and work coaches at the job centres and things, how do they work together? So how do you compute all of that in your head, or the tools that you've got to say to this person, this sounds like it's the best place for you. This is the best route of support. And that's a challenge that will, you know, it's been a challenge in the past. It's hard to say. It's probably going to be a challenge in the future because of speed. But it's coming from, I have to say, you know, it's coming from a good place. There's huge investment coming from a government level, Scotland, UK-wide, you know, DWP. This is not, you know, it's not insignificant, the amount of support that's being funneled towards employment support as an economic recovery tool. So, you know, it's coming from a positive place. It's just, we'll always end up being the swans, whatever that analogy is, with, you know, to the customer, it's got to look like it's seamless, but we'll all be there in the background with our feet kicking, understanding what's best for that person. So alignment is an absolutely crucial part of all of this.
Thank you, Alex. I think that's a really interesting point, actually, because one of the big things I always think about when we look at job schemes, and I think particularly when we look at the third sector, is we know we've got lots of our organisations out there at this time that are quite stretched in terms of staff resources, and actually they're seeing it as a great way of boosting a staff team. But actually, if we take our basic principles of the third sector, which is all about our beneficiaries and our social impacts, we have to be thinking about it from the employee perspective and the person on the placement, not just about us building up a staff team. So I think it's getting that balance. And I just wondered whether So I'm conscious we're well over, and I just wondered maybe as a last perspective, there was maybe some bits of advice from, obviously Moira, you'll have had the Community Jobs Scotland experience, Alex, you've had the WISE group, Jayne through the Employability Centre, just a last bit, and what would your advice be to a social enterprise about how they get that right to make sure that they're balancing what an organisation needs with what the person on a placement needs, so that they actually create something that's the best for everyone? And is there just a warning that you could just put, and that's just the last quick question, and I know Beth's just going to have to drop out, so thank you, Beth, and then we'll finish on that point. So perhaps we just go through Moira, Jayne and Alex, and then we'll draw the session to a close.
Not an easy one again. You like the easy questions. I suppose my best advice is work with the young person from the start. I mean, you'll draw up a job description, you'll have all these plans in place as to what you want to do, but until that individual walks through the door, you've got no idea what you're going to be faced with. So it's very much a case of working with that young person. We've seen, as you said, through the experience of CGS, we've seen situations whereby the employer will create a job description. They'll say, this is what the job is, this is what they're going to do. What they'll find is on starting is that they'll have to temper that job, you know, for the young person when they come in. It might be that the young person presents fabulous skills in a slightly different area that they think, oh right, we can use this, but we can still use it within the context of this job. Fantastic, do that. It might be that there's certain elements of the job that the young person maybe can't do right away, but with a little bit of support, whether that be through some additional training or maybe just even some shadowing with existing staff, they can do that. So it really is work with a young person. And again, it's a difficult one to say, but depending on the remit of the intermediary organisation or the gateway organisation and what they're offering, if they're offering any kind of support, use it. Don't think, oh right, we're in this on our own and we've got to do everything. If they're saying they're going to offer that support, they're there to do that, and they need to do that. So use it.
Thank you, Moira. It's all just those last little bits, I think, of helpful advice. So quickly from Jayne, and then lastly just from Alex, and then we'll draw the session to a close. I'm assuming you're all right to just answer the question, because you're not already late for another meeting.
No, we're okay.
No, it's all good here. Thanks, Naomi. I just build on what Moira said there. So I think that from a social enterprise point of view, it's looking at the support that you can provide yourself and knowing your limitations, and looking for external specialist partners and building relationships with those organisations to provide the additional support that young people via Kickstart or other beneficiary groups will need as they're going through their employability journey. So don't try and do it all yourself.
Yeah, good one.
Thank you, Jayne. And Alex, just a final thought from you?
Yeah, I mean, hard to build on all that because I think that, you know, it's really comprehensive, but I suppose keeping the young person at the heart of it. It's very easy to see this as a, you know, from an employer's perspective, from an economic perspective, as, you know, as something that employers, it's all focused around employers, and it's not. It's a, you know, this is a fantastic opportunity for employers to provide meaningful and useful opportunities for young people. And it's easy to then, you know, the nature of the questions that you know, we've seen on here, that I know that I've been asked, Moira will have been asked these 30 times in the last couple of weeks. You know, how does it work? The money, the bureaucracy, the processes. Don't forget about the young person. So, you know, what does it mean for you as an employer to engage with this program and to provide a great opportunity for that young person? It's not just the fact that 6 months will be paid at a certain level, and, you know, it's an opportunity with little or no financial investment or risk or anything like that. It's, you know, that's why we want to work with like-minded employers who understand this for what it is, that it's an opportunity for them to, from a business perspective, but from an opportunity from a young person's perspective, to have a really positive 6 months and to come out of that stronger, come out of that with new skills, bolstered skills, greater confidence, great experience that they can use in whatever their next step is. So I think bringing the young person back into it, and you know, Moira's advice about use the support is absolutely spot on, because the equally big part of this is that wraparound support, and that's not core to what most businesses do. It is to a lot of people that will be on the session. A lot of SCVO members, a lot of social enterprises do employability work, so it's core to them. It's core to us. But for most organisations, it's not. But it's a requirement of Kickstart. So use that support that Gateways are providing or others are offering to make it a successful journey. So I think, hopefully that's some nuggets of wisdom from the three of us that will help people to understand it a little bit more.
No, thank you. I actually think that was a really helpful point at which to close. My big thanks to everyone for today's session. I'm sorry it was a bit strange from my perspective with early deliveries. So I would like to thank you all for joining us in terms of speaking. I'd also like to thank my colleague Duncan for kind of stepping in at the point when I'm frantically going, Duncan, the deliverymen are here, I'm going to have to do this, can you take over? So he puts a lot of work into getting these sessions set up. So thank you. So thank you to all. We will be sharing the session, and if people want the slides, we'll share those out with people. And yeah, thank you very much and all the best.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Great,
Bye.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.